Today's episode is proudly brought to you by our sponsor, Qcharge. If you have questions about the future of electrification or you're ready to electrify your property and dive into a new business opportunity, look no further. Qcharge has your back. Just visit www.qcharge123.com, your one-stop shop for everything you need from equipment procurement, engineering, and installation to full operation and ongoing service all at your fingertips. Qcharge, the future we shape.
Hello, my podcast listeners, and welcome again to our podcast Q in Charge. Today we have a very unique guest. His name is Makoto Kern, and I will let him to introduce himself and his business and his venture and path to today's establishment of his company. So without further ado, Makoto, please take over the mic and tell us a little bit about you to introduce himself.
Great. Thanks for the introduction and happy to be on the podcast. My name is Makoto Kern. I'm the founder and principal product design consultant at Impact. We've been around in business for about the last 20 plus years, mainly focused on like enterprise software, UX design. We've been on the Inc. 5000 3 times in a row for one of the fastest growing privately held companies. And I started this company back in Chicago where I grew up. And we started primarily as like a UX design agency, but we've evolved and we now offer more of a holistic approach towards product launches. And that's everything from product strategy, trying to get business leadership aligned, getting them empathetic about the users, and then actually having a good go-to-market plan and having an idea of what are the best features to launch. And then we've got AI, obviously capabilities. We're integrating AI into our clients' products. And yeah, it's been a pretty interesting journey for me starting my company, and I'd love to get into that.
Yeah. And let me ask you before we're gonna go, dive deep into your what you actually do and how you can actually help other companies and individuals just in general. How you found yourself actually in this realm, like what was your background, how did you, I assume that you didn't just wake up in one morning or finish your high school or college and say, hey, I want to be in that, in this type of industry. So what was actually, kind of influence you to kind of go this direction?
So I actually went to school for electrical engineering. I did my master's in robotics, and I started off my career as a kind of a manufacturing electrical engineering and got into a lot of automation into the manufacturing space. And so my job was to really tweak the software that was created by engineers for engineers, but really for the people on the manufacturing floor who aren't very technically savvy, but they have to create software and they have to create the product and assemble it. And if something comes up on their screen and they miss it, now they've just shipped 1,000 widgets incorrectly. So my job was to really optimize what they're doing, but then obviously tweak the software so it becomes more user friendly. So it was kind of a natural progression to get into that. But at the same time, the dot-com boom was happening as well. And so that's where everybody wanted a website. Everybody wanted something to, market with. And I got into that business where I was helping a lot of friends. I was going on Craigslist to find jobs. I mean, every time when I was driving into work, traffic in Chicago was pretty horrible. So, the hour or 2 hours of driving in traffic, I'm making full phone calls to clients and I'm on lunch break. And so it just got to a point where I was able to quit my engineering job and started this full time, was consulting as well. So yeah, that's kind of like the progression into UX. And my first consulting jobs and first work was mainly working with companies that knew about UX. They kind of had an idea of like, hey, we need to make our software more user friendly. We need to make it look better. And so back then there was a mess of websites that kind of worked. Apps were coming out, and so Apple really made the user experience such a big thing to be focused on versus just like, hey, let's put a bunch of features in here and
Mhm.
people will just use it. But it's actually let's make it easier to use, and that's going to make our company a lot better and compete against other apps that aren't as usable. So.
Currently all these, let's say, turnaround paths that you were trying, to kind of fine tune yourself, going to the AI, what would be, you say, let's say, your primary key to kind of make that shift in your career, or change of that from electrical engineering, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I assume you do not do any more electrical engineering, but
No,
yeah,
maybe
but
play
I mean,
around with some, maybe I try to like, disconnect something at home, but I'll end up shocking myself.
but I mean, so out of all entire journey, so what would be, like, you say, like, that important key turn point, that kind of led you to this change of your career?
I think it's interesting because as an engineer, I still love figuring out things. I
Yeah.
still really like tinkering with different things, software, hardware, whatever it is. So I think there's always that thirst for knowledge of just curiosity.
Hmm.
It's helpful as an engineer, just trying to figure things out is important. But I think as an engineer too, you're not really interacting with too many people, and that's what I love about doing what I'm doing now is that I'm just not in front of a computer all day per se, but I'm actually talking to people. I'm leading a team. I've always been interested in entrepreneurship, so it kind of just worked out that way where UX design was such a good mix of understanding technology but also being empathetic to your users and understanding kind of what they're trying to figure out versus just, being, oh, I'll just develop something that looks cool and that's good enough for me. But actually, like getting to the heart of the user's pain points and then talking with them and doing that research, but also integrating technology into that.
Hmm.
Um, I think also just the fact that, my agency, we've gravitated towards enterprise software. And enterprise software is not, it's not the sexy thing for designers where everything looks pretty. It's actually kind of boring per se, but the complexity of the subject matter of, the clients that we work with, cybersecurity, energy, robotics. I mean, those are all things that are like harder to figure out, like what is important for the user at what time and what is their workflow. And we're not SMEs at these things. And so figuring those things out as a designer is just always been really cool and something that we've been doing for, the last couple decades.
The first question would be, let's say, what would be the first project that you kind of, start focusing on solving the problems of other people, and that
Okay.
kind of start leading to, more and more development. And then
hmm
what would be the second, let's say, or the most important project that kind of lift off your company and your business?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple different kind of like paths that grew our business. And some of them aren't as positive as others. And I think, what again during that dot-com boom, I started getting a lot of clients and a lot of people wanting to build. So I had to build a team. And I was focused on just building that team fast, saying yes to all the clients and really trying to like grow it fast. And that becomes a problem when you're growing a company, the team is so important. And so, I learned like projects weren't doing so well, quality was suffering. And so when the dot-com boom became a bust, that's when I knew like, okay, when I start to build a team now and when I start to take on projects, I'm going to be very explicit on who I hire, the right attitude, the right people. And, now I still have people with me who's been with me from the beginning. My designers have been on my team for, 7 to 10 years. And so I think that's such a really important thing. And it wasn't just like one project. It was just like a culmination of multiple things at once of just growing a business. But there's been like some projects where when we actually moved our business to Austin, Texas, we took on a really big client of ours, and they're in Houston, and they're a big energy software company. And they basically brought me in. I was competing against another UX agency who I actually followed and knew. And I was like, oh my God, when I heard about that, I said, there's no way I'm gonna beat them. I mean, they were pretty transparent about who I was competing against. And during the whole process, they actually got acquired by Capital One. And I was like, whew, okay. So when I was talking to the VP there, he basically said, hey, Makoto, these other companies, they promise the world, but they're not going to help us execute.
Hmm.
And so I told him, look, if whatever I need to do, like we'll recommend things, but I'm willing to take ownership and continue with the journey because I said, look, we're not energy experts, but we're UX design experts. And design is always a constant iteration. You don't just launch one thing and that's it, you're done. You have to constantly iterate. And so we've been we're still with this company. They're still our client and we're partners for the last 10 years. And it just shows that like as you create these relationships, that's the kind of thing where we're in it and we take ownership of what we recommend. And then if we say, hey, this doesn't work, we try to figure out the best way to move forward and to pivot. And so that's really kind of the stepping stone because from that company alone, I was able to, just for the last 10 years, just we've been growing on straight referrals just from the people who have left that company, gone to other companies, and they just really enjoy working with us.
Hmm. So what would be, let's say, in your explain us, let's say, during your journey, right?
Mhm.
Especially because you're speed tracking the entire business and hiring the people. What were your basically like the most challenging uh, you know uh, things that you had to do, or hiring people, finding the proper talented, especially because it was kind of like a newer industry, newer technology, and
Yeah.
just in general, your like pros and cons during the time of building your and establishing your company.
Yeah. So my mottos has been, and it always probably will be, hire slow, fire fast. And it's, with corporations, it's hard for them to do that. They tend to do the opposite. And that's what kind of kills corporations because you've got individuals that aren't good. And it only takes one person to really detriment an entire project or company.
I
And
agree.
so with me, every single individual is really important. And me being a designer as well, I can call bullshit on people who, if they're in my company and they're doing work and they're like, yeah, I can do this or that or whatever, and I see the work, I can immediately tell the effort that was put in, how much effort, and if there's, if they're trying to pull a fast one on me. And
Hmm.
so I have developers on my team as well. And that's, me, I know some development, but I'm not keeping up with it. So I rely heavily on the trust of my leads to really tell me if like the person that we hired, are they worth it? Are they trying to, pull something on us? And
So
so
how
it's
difficult
really,
was to find those
you
people
know,
for you?
what's that?
So how was difficult to find those people for you?
It's I think it's easy to find people. It's difficult to hire people. And so there's so many ways now in which you can just connect with people. I mean, you post anything on LinkedIn, a job, there's 500 people within 3 days that apply for it.
Hmm.
Um, and I can see the problems that companies are facing where it's like, oh, nobody ever responds to me. This is a fake job posting. But I mean, I've posted things just on LinkedIn and literally I'm by myself trying to like go through this with like one other person. And, unless you have a huge HR department, or you've somehow programmed AI to like scan everything properly, it's really hard to go through everybody.
All of
So
them.
generally what you rely on is referrals from other people. So that can make or break too. I mean, if you got somebody who is smart at like they did their due diligence, hey, there's this guy that I worked with in the past, or a woman, and this is, I vouch for them, then you take that into consideration. And I think most startups, Sam, everything out of the startup industry, they do that pretty effectively, within their own organization. And oh, I worked with Google or Amazon with them before, let's just hire them. So it's really hard to break into those kind of circles, but generally I try to do like always ask for referrals because I trust my team. But I still do my due diligence. You still ask questions. You still do background checks. You have to do that. You can't just blindly just hire people just based on a single referral. So,
Okay. And what would be, let's say, the most difficult obstacle that you had to kind of overcome?
so I think a lot of businesses, especially service-based businesses, they all run into the same thing. They run into the same issues, which is growth. It's like, and it's like you either find the projects or you hire the people. Which one do you do first? And they
Mhm.
try to balance doing one or the other first. And, whether you're finding projects through other people, your marketing, social marketing, whatever, the game is changing, especially with AI now.
Yeah. It's on a fast
There's
pace of change.
Yeah, and with anything, you just know that the only thing that's consistent is change. And for the last 20 years, I've had to pivot and change and really be like with globalization, you have to be really competitive. And things have gotten more competitive because of the way things are. And so marketing and finding new clients. I mean, there's zero clicks. SEO is dead. It's zero clicks now. Nobody's scrolling down the page. Um,
Less
so
and less. I see that as well. I see that
yeah,
SEO is becoming kind of put almost in a certain way in obsolete because people are right now getting to that, like 10-second scrolls,
yep,
or whatever I see in the first scroll on my phone or two scrolls, that's it. I'm going to move on. So
yep.
people are, and I see that that's also people becoming like a little bit of a challenging for providing your full story, your information, what you can do. So you have to be very to the point in a short presentation, and
Yep.
people are becoming more and more visual, I would say. So everything is just visually. Nobody reads anything anymore.
It is. I mean, if you're in tech and you do development, geez, there's like a million companies out there that does
Yeah.
development. But us as like tech people, we know immediately we could call bullshit on people who are like, "Oh, I know what they're doing. I know what they're trying to do. They're not that great, whatever." But it's really hard for somebody who's an executive who's trying to make that decision. It's like, "Oh my God, who do I lean on to?" And so you start to fall back on again the referrals things, but there's also, with AI, there's so much AI slop. There's so much noise out there. I mean, I'm sure if you go on your LinkedIn right now, you probably had like 5 new messages about somebody trying to sell you something, and it's just like you have to figure out a way to get through all that slop and all that noise. And it always comes back down to authenticity. You did the hard work. You figured out like, hey, it's me that's talking to you. It's not this AI or my assistant out in Vietnam that's trying to reach out to you and say the same kind of, crap that everybody else is trying to say. It's like, this is me. Let's figure what we can do to solve your problem. And that's it. I mean, you're not going to convert 100% of the people. So it's like
Yeah.
you gotta grind at this, and it's like this is how the pivot has been. I mean, over the last year, it's been interesting. Again, it's like you're seeing this pivot, and I've had to pivot, and then I've had to really get myself more out there.
Hmm.
I just want to do the work. That's all I care about. I don't want to sit here and talk on, podcasts or whatever. That's what I thought. But then now, doing these things, meeting people like you, it's great. It's like another way of networking. And
Correct.
it's just who knows what kind of connections are. And when we're talking like this, you get to really understand who people are and get to know them a little bit better without actually knowing them.
Yeah, and interesting that you mentioned Vietnam, and that would be my next
Yeah.
question, right? So how challenging it's for you, for example, because your company here in the United States, and a lot of right now this because it's remote work when it comes to the AI and technology,
Yeah.
people overseas in a let's say poorer countries, they can find also the workforce for way cheaper than it's over here and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But compared to the quality that we here in the United States or your company can provide compared to what you can find in overseas. So
Yeah.
how do you see that kind of being challenging to you and being competitive in that realm because of
Yeah.
the prices and everything, and at the same time of the quality of the product?
So I think this is always a thing where this is where the rubber hits the road type of thing where it's like, okay, you've got, and I still see this kind of situation where you've got the disconnect between the CFO or the financial people making the decisions versus the people who are in it, the product people, the people who have to deal with you. And it's like, well, how much this person's $10 an hour, this person's $100 an hour. Why are we just not hiring more $10 an hour? It's like,
Mm,
just tell me the bottom line. And you already know the mistake with that statement. But I still see and hear high level people in a company trying to make those decisions based on that alone. And that just shows their inexperience. And we know you get what you pay for. And so if you, especially now in the day and age of AI, your competitors are going to be able to prompt their way and copy you as fast as, within a week or two, what you just did.
mhm,
Um, and we could get into the whole how secure the code is and all that stuff, but in either case, they can see what you're doing and they can copy it pretty quickly. And so
mm,
it's like you have to have speed and you have to have direction, but you also have to have continuous improvement. If you have somebody who's low quality, and this is the problem with the people who are getting paid less, they know their value. They know it's a digital world. If they know they're good, they're going to start upping their rate and leaving and going somewhere else. So you got somebody who's either convinced they're not that good and they're still cheap, um, or they're just like they're getting ready to get out of there. But the fact of the matter is, if you're a company and you have competitors, you have to move fast, and you got to continuously improve, and you have to have expertise on your staff, whether it's consultants or your internal teams, who know how to move that fast and know how to move in the right direction. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really hard for companies to really grasp that before. But even now, it's going to be even more prevalent where you're going to be left behind if you're like, oh, you know what, we'll just make one change or we'll just do this and then we're good for the rest of the year. It's like, no, you're going to, as soon as your competitors sell like, hey, this is what they were doing. We did that 6 months ago. We've already improved on that. We're doing this now. Yeah, your sales team is going to get upset and pissed because they can't compete. So it
Mm-hmm.
just becomes more important for the quality of people that you have in your team. And yeah, they can use AI to help speed up and become a force multiplier, but the quality of individuals, especially if you have AI and you have people that are replicating bad code or replicating bad design, it just now becomes faster, that bad replication within your
Mm-hmm.
organization. So it's going to be an interesting time.
Yeah. So give us, for example, a couple examples on the projects that you worked for other companies, or what type of solutions or problems in different type of, I guess, industries that you already worked on, you were
Mhm.
able to, kind of solve, and what you have done.
Yeah, definitely. So with I can start with like so with energy, it was when I got this oil and gas energy software company that I was brought into. It's really interesting because it's a similar problem. It doesn't matter if it was 10 years ago, if it's 10 months ago. Every company has the same problem where they've got legacy software. They brought me in, they showed me their legacy software, like, hey, we've got so many people working on this, but are using it, but we're starting to lose market share to another competitor. It looks better. The UI is, it looks more modern. It does half the stuff that we do, but it just, it's easier to sell. And so I said, look, I was sitting in a room with like 20 execs from the president to all the VPs, and they're showing me the software and they're asking me to like make a make a UX design right then and there, basically, in front of them. And I said, look, when it comes to UX design and making things better, especially with enterprise, it's not really just you're asking to make it visually better. How does this look? Because they had some kind of, they had their team try to make it look better from their first rendition to their second version. And I said, look, this is what you're asking me it's lipstick on a pig, is what I call it. The UX design is the deep research into understanding the user's pain points in their workflow. And
Correct.
so,
Customer experience.
yeah, and your company that has, 200 people and your product owners, they're not using the process of proper design. They're just going in there and saying, "Hey, give me something that I can just, pretty this up, give to development, and we can launch faster." That's what they think is faster way to launch product. And it's still happening today where they're like, just give me wireframes, we'll go right to development. And I always say, if you're going to build a house, are you going to build the house first, then have the people move in and say, "Hey, what do you think?" Guess how expensive that is when they're like, "I want I want 3 bedrooms, not 4 bedrooms. So can you change this?" It's far more expensive. And so it's the same thing with software and product. And when we're in there, and I told them, I'm like, look, with enterprise software, it's different than consumer facing products. Enterprise, you've got people that have been in it. You got people who've been using something for 7 to 10 years or whatever, and there's a workflow they've optimized. And when you show them something new, they're going to immediately hate it. No matter how much you put them in a group and you say, "Hey, what do you think of our new software?" They're going to hate it because it just disrupts their workflow. And so I told them that, we may be able to change the workflow and don't go by clicks. The number of clicks doesn't matter, but they still go by that metric. And I said, it doesn't matter the clicks or if this looks more modern. It's the fact that matters. Do you get them to solve their daily routine or their problems quicker? And by doing that, and you make it more enjoyable, they make it's intuitive. It's not, not a steep learning curve. These are all things that are very important. And so, and also just teaching the product owners who are generally like SMEs who've been in the industry for years and now they're product owners. They can actually, they're the glue that holds everything together as well, because they're the glue between business, design, and development. And I've got product owners in there that are telling me, "Hey, let's not change anything. It's all working fine." And I'm like, "But that's not an innovative solution." And you have to leverage your UX designers to say, "Hey, what about this solution?" You prototype it, you do the UX research, and you figure out like, "Hey, this is high risk, but it's high reward. So let's do a little bit more due diligence, understand the strategy, and then we can launch it." Instead
Mhm.
of like, no, 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 let's play it safe. Let's not make any changes. It's all good. That's a detriment to your company. And so just, going in there and teaching each team and each group, like, hey, this is how you set up proper processes. You need to build a scalable system because there's so many different teams within your organization that are touching different parts of the application. If this team doesn't talk to this team, guess what? This form field over here looks different than this form field over here. And now the user's like, how come I have to do this differently in between pages? I mean, it's a mess. And so just champion better processes within this organization really helped them. They're able to like, I mean, you're talking 30 plus applications. So it was a massive kind of like 3-year thing that turned into now 10 years. But being able to teach them and go through proper processes really help them speed up development
Mhm.
and their product launches. So that's just one story out of many. Cybersecurity is a big one now. And cybersecurity, again, it's a very tech heavy industry. And
Well, it's
so it's
specifically
usually,
because of data privacy and and
yeah,
personal information. It's very important. I mean, honestly, even in my business, I already got 2 times hacked on my emails just for some bogus stuff that they're sending to you. So yeah, cybersecurity, it's very important then to
yeah.
identify that in time before you actually click to something.
Yeah, with cybersecurity, it's like I said, it's very tech heavy, it's very dev driven. Whenever I see product underneath the CTO, that's a problem because it has to be separate. The dev teams are worried about solving their backlogs. They're not worried about the user experience. So it's like, okay, which do I do? This component's going to take me 100 hours. This component's going to take me 5. I'm going to do the 5 hour, even though the user experience is going to suck. I'm going to choose that. And so there's a conflict of interest. So you have to have separation between product and technology or the CTO. And
Mhm.
so it's usually driven by the CTO. And so going in there and having, a champion who's a head of product and saying, look, there's better ways to do this. And generally what I see is the dev teams will try to do design. And what they do is they say, hey, marketing, you're great at creating pretty stuff. Come over here and redo this dashboard for us. And so that's generally what happens. They'll have marketing pretty up their dashboard and say, look, it looks great. And we were just in a cybersecurity company where that exactly just happened. Luckily, the head of dev was hired in there. We worked with him before, and he says, "Hey, Makoto, what do you think?" And I said, "This looks like garbage." He's like, "That's my exact thoughts. I have no idea what half of these components are doing. It looks great, but the user won't know what they're looking at." And so you go through this process of product strategy, understanding these things, and getting these companies to understand business goals, how it ties into users' goals and objectives, and how that ties into your features. That speeds up the process, but it takes it. Solving the human ego and becoming a therapist is more challenging than actually doing the product design.
Now, let me ask you, so
Yeah.
uh, how do you see or how do you foresee the future of this type of a technology and just
Mhm.
general use of AI? I mean, well, right now, pretty much on a daily basis, every common person can, go and use any type of AI that is over there that, depends of what you're trying to use it, right? ChatGPT or any type
Yep.
of, other ones that, no, ChatGPT pretty much everybody knows. So I mentioned it, but and also uh, your vision for the future, right, of all these type of development, where do you see yourself in the next 5, 10 years as well with the company and your business?
Yeah, I think I think there's definitely it's obviously happening now. It's kind of that um that kind of that tool replacement for it's that human AI partnership. That's such an important thing. I mean, it's like you won't be replaced by AI, but you're going to be replaced by somebody using AI to their advantage. And
Mhm.
so just becoming familiar with it, using it, and it's in every single tool. It's in all the design tools, it's in the development tools, and it's in strategic tools. And so if you're able to leverage that effectively, but then you have to be somewhat of an expert and you have to question some of the things that you see as well. And so, um, where they say, oh, let's just get rid of everybody. We could just hire our junior person and just use AI. No, that's not the case. You do not want to do that. You want people to learn from it from a lower level perspective, but you also want to have your expertise always double checking things, making sure that is the way to go. And then that helps the junior person evolve into becoming more senior and leveraging both, their expertise and the AI technology. So I feel like that's where you're going to see AI being integrated into all the different processes, whether it's, AI agents that are really helping someone learn from that and understand that, to just being in the tools itself and just understanding where the strengths and weaknesses are.
Do
And
you see,
so,
do you see, for example, in the future that gonna AI be completely in an open source, kind of like out there in on the web and just being completely free?
yeah, it's almost like if you think about the .com, like Netscape, AOL versus Google Chrome. I mean, it's free, and it's really the user interface that we care about. Like, give me the Google Chrome. Like, is it giving me what I need the easiest way possible versus these other browsers? And AI is probably the same thing. The only thing is that the privacy, the security is still going to be like at the top of mind, and the manipulation that can happen as well very
Mhm.
easily as you're using it. So I think it's like this with great power comes great responsibility. Like there's going to be so many easy ways to manipulate if you have that power, if you're open AI or if you're Claude or Perplexity, if you're able to like control that. Um, yeah, it's going to be scary what can happen and come out of it. Obviously, it could be
Yeah,
very good, but it could also be very bad.
correct. We don't want Terminator era.
Well,
I
I,
mean, this is the
yeah.
question because right now I just recently saw that somewhere in Asia, I can't remember, is it like a China or Japan, but they're already kind of announcing that they're gonna start selling basically like a personal robots that they're gonna have their
Mhm.
AIs. So basically, your kind of personal assistant, in a certain way, and it can be implemented to your workforce, to your household, to anything that you can imagine. And
Mhm.
I don't even know how truthful this is that I think in China they're saying right now that for 11 or $12,000 you're going to have a robot that they can carry your offsprings. So even the kids can
Yeah.
be basically kind of incubated in a body of the robot. So I don't know if actually it is really out there as a technology, but like that's the reason why I'm asking all how you see, because what
Yeah.
we see here in the United States is not everything what is out there, right?
Yeah. Um, yeah, so this is funny. I had a conversation with one of my friends. He owns a private equity company, and I mean, he's kind of sometimes the conspiracy theory kind of doom and gloom guy, and he says, the middle class and the upper middle class don't realize it, but they're out of jobs. They're fucked. He's like, it's going to be blood on the streets, and until people realize like there's no more jobs left, there's no, now we got humanoid robots. We thought the physical side of things was kind of protected, but once that comes in, basically by 2030, you're going to have the 0.1% that made the ton of money versus the other 99.9% that are upset because they can't even eat because they can't afford it. So you're talking humanoid robots now that will take place of that physical side of things, and they're learning at a rate that's so fast. Again, I was in robotics, and programming that back in the day was far more difficult, but now with this is what I and this is my like high level knowledge of the Tesla self-driving. It's learning from how other people drive, and with the robots and Tesla's humanoid robot, they're showing just showing the movement. You don't have to know all the engineering, component, the ways in which, things move and all that. You basically just show how you do a certain task and it just mimics it. And
Hmm.
so the programming speed at which that can occur is going to be exponential. So this is coming at us very fast.
Do you
And
think it's
so,
going to be
and
ever
cheaply
self-learning?
too. What's that?
Do you think that there's going to be ever self-learning, AI?
Oh yeah, I 100% because just I study like neural networks just at a high level for my master's, and you're mimicking learning algorithms in the brain, and we're and out and I'm not even that great at math, so I can imagine somebody who's a savant at math, they're programming. That's why they're paying $1 billion salary to these AI engineers because you're essentially programming how the brain learns and learns from itself. And there's a feedback loop and all that. And it's amazing to even see that mathematically at the very superficial level that I touched. So I can
Hmm.
imagine these guys that are really at that highest level. I mean, it's probably scary how fast this thing's going to learn. The only thing slowing you down right now is just the hardware of the computer systems. But that's just exponentially increasing. And I can't even imagine if we get into the quantum computing where, we had those demonstrations on how fast those things are solving problems that would take a normal computer, I don't know how many trillions of years, but it's solved in 5 minutes is just scary.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so where do you see yourself in the next 5, 10 years in all this?
Hopefully on a beach, retired and not having to worry about the not worried
Likewise, I
about
hope so too.
trading my crypto that's, $1 million per Bitcoin or something, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
well, I
mean,
mean, just a thought of your business, like, like what
yeah.
for the future, like what do you plan, what your plans are, and do you have any maybe I don't know, like different thoughts maybe to kind of shift into different type of a business in the industry, implementing the current knowledge that you have.
Yeah, I'm I've been trying for the last, 12 months, 13, 24 months trying to say, okay, let's switch from service based to a product based. Let's create a product. But every time you turn around and think of something, there's always 10 or 20 companies doing the same thing. And so it's like, and it's like, okay, maybe if I would have started 6 months earlier, now I realize I have 20 other companies right on my tail within 6 months doing the same thing. So it's like, do I really want to get into that business of product? Because that's a whole nother mess of things versus service-based industry. So
Hmm.
that there's never like an easy path, whichever you go, product or service. And so, I've been trying to figure that thing out. And I have 3 kids. I have one kid that's turning 18 next year. And so he's been asking me, Dad, what should I do? What should I get into? I want to work with my kids. I want them to help out, but I'm like, oh God, is there a future in design? Is there a future in development or tech? Or, do you have to be super like intelligent, graduating at the highest places to only be the ones finding a job versus everybody else? And so I don't know, I still love what I do. I still love working with people. And I think working with people and solving their pain points and being genuine is still something that I love to do. And I hopefully can still do this for another decade. Um, and just finding those things in which I'm like, it's still the same problems to solve. It's still the same issues that you're having. You're trying to launch a product, whether it has AI or this or that, you are still trying to sell more. And how you do that, you do that by being user-centered focused. So
Hmm.
I'm hoping that's still going to be in demand, just with a few tweaks, a few ways in which you got to be faster and better. And so hopefully I can adapt to that. If I can't, then, I'm just going to go away of the dinosaur. But if I can adapt, then I'll be, the whatever. I'll be the
Yeah.
alligator, the shark.
Yeah, well, I do understand what you just mentioned because the entire world is, I believe, so in a fast pace of any type of development, progress, technology. I mean,
Mhm.
right now, what we used to as a human needed maybe about 50 years to develop, it's basically developed in 6 months.
Yeah.
So it's really fast paced. Um, as we mentioned, fast pace. I mean, we're getting also close to our end of the show and this episode. Let us know for the end, how the people actually can find you out,
Yeah.
find what you're doing and reach out to
Mhm.
you.
Definitely. So obviously you can find me on LinkedIn, Makoto Kern. We have our website as well, Impact with 3 I's, mpact.io. We also have all the social media platforms, but we also have our own podcast as well. It's called Make an Impact with Three Eyes. Um, we're doing pretty well. We just hit 50,000 subscribers, I think yesterday. So, we got some topics on AI, UX, product, just tell our crazy war stories, and hopefully people find some interest in that. And yeah, feel free to reach out. Love to hear about your problems, hear how we can solve them. If not, then it's a good conversation, hopefully. But yeah, thanks for having me. This has been great, and appreciate everybody listening in.
Thank you for being my guest, and thank you for actually all this information and knowledge share that you have. I believe so that it will bring some maybe the light to all this AI and technology to some people and my listeners. Thank you again for being on my show.
Definitely. Take
Uh,
care, everybody. Bye.
and my hi. So, my esteemed podcast listeners, new or old, thank you for joining us to this today's episode. I hope that it brings you some new informations or input for the AI and technology, how it can be implemented in a which way. Makoto, as you heard, he's a really resourceful person, and if you need something being built for you in a proper way, feel free to reach out to him. And for all those people that they are listening to us and they find this episode insightful for themselves, their friends, or people that they are interested to hear something like this, feel free to share this episode, like us, of course, support us. Every support for us, it's highly valued. And of course, send us inquiries, questions. Stay charged and stay curious. Until next time.